In 2024, OpenAI quietly changed some lines in their usage policy. The blanket ban for military and warfare usage was replaced with a more general statement. But this was more than a few words. The technology that entered classrooms, offices, and homes was beginning to enter something else entirely.
Will you allow governments to use your technology to kill people?
I don't know the way that people in the military use ChatGPT today for all kinds of advice about decisions they make.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong. And
let me ask you something. If the other side is going to advance technology, would it be justified to advance it before they did? What if that technology could end lives? What if it saved lives through deterrence? But how far can you keep growing an arsenal until you forget what you're growing it for? J. Robert Oppenheimer sat with that question.
2, 1, now.
Most people think he answered it on July 16th, 1945, when the first atomic bomb lit up the New Mexico desert. But Oppenheimer kept living with that question. And the more he lived with it, the more dangerous he became. He had built the most destructive weapon in human history, and he knew it. After Hiroshima, Oppenheimer told President Truman directly, "I feel like I have blood on my hands." He urged restraint on the next generation of nuclear weapons. In 1954, the US government revoked his security clearance. The man who built the bomb was now considered a security risk by the country he built it for. He spent the rest of his life largely outside the center of political power, watching the nuclear arms race accelerate without him. He built the most dangerous technology of his century, believing the alternative was worse. 70 years later, a group of researchers in San Francisco asked themselves the same question and came up with the same answer. They founded OpenAI with a single stated conviction: to develop safe, beneficial AI that benefits all of humanity. For 4 years, they kept their promise. Then, in 2019, they built something that frightened them: GPT-2, a large language model so capable at generating convincing text that OpenAI refused to release it publicly. They said the world needed time to prepare. During that same period, OpenAI restructured into a capped profit company. Microsoft invested $1 billion, and GPT-2 was released anyways. The slow cracks in OpenAI's philosophy were beginning to appear. With costs escalating fast, each new generation demanded more money. Donations couldn't cover what was coming. Quick break. Did you know the coolest code learning experience I found was when I could directly edit the code inside the video tutorial? That's exactly what Scrimba, today's sponsor, offers. Instead of watching a standard video tutorial and constantly needing to switch back and forth with your own editor, Scrimba combines it all into one, so you can pause the lesson, edit the code, and experiment right inside of your browser. In this way, Scrimba gets you coding faster. Many of their courses are free. Sign up with my link and get 20% off their pro plans if you decide to upgrade later. I get a small commission which helps support my channel. Now back to the video. Google had acquired DeepMind many years ago. Meta was building its own models, and the world was watching. 2022, ChatGPT was launched, becoming the fastest growing consumer app in history. Inside Google, executives declared code red. The race was no longer between researchers. It was between corporations and nations. And once something becomes strategically important, the question is no longer, should we build it? The question becomes, can we afford not to? (2020), a military test range in North Carolina. Soldiers from the 18th Airborne Corps were scanning satellite images, looking for targets. But they weren't alone. An AI system was scanning the same images, faster. It flagged something, a tank. The soldiers confirmed it. A rocket fired and the tank exploded. Colonel Joseph O'Callaghan photographed the fireball. He kept it framed on his conference room wall. "It showed us the art of the possible," he said. That was in a controlled environment, a test. That same year, In the Libyan desert, it was no longer a test. A Turkish-made drone, the Cargo 2, was used to hunt retreating soldiers. After the weapon was launched, it no longer needed a live communication link to the human operator. A true fire, forget, and find weapon, the UN noted. Whether it killed that day remains disputed, but the capability existed. It was deployed. May 2021, Gaza. The Israel Defense Forces deployed something the world had never seen in combat. A swarm of AI-guided drones controlled by only a single human operator to direct the swarm. With over 30 sorties launched, the Israeli military intelligence called it the first AI war. February 2026, US military operations against Iran. The Maven smart system, an AI targeting software built by Palantir Technologies, was now helping generate strike recommendations at military scale. Cameron Stanley, the Pentagon's chief digital and AI officer, said that Project Maven was also used to identify the friendly unit best positioned to strike any given targets and to generate courses of action for US strike units to follow. 6 years from a framed photograph to operating at military scale.
We have said to the Department that we are okay with all use cases, basically 98 or 99% of the use cases they want to do, except for 2. One is domestic mass surveillance. Case number 2 is fully autonomous weapons.
This was the CEO of Anthropic, one of OpenAI's biggest competitors, talking about why he refused to sign a deal with the Department of War. He had voiced a fear that many people in the world were feeling. However, Anthropic wouldn't get away. President Trump would post on Truth Social, directing every federal agency in the United States to immediately cease all use of Anthropic's technology. They were designated a supply chain risk, the first time in history that label had been used against an American company. Hours later, the contract went to OpenAI. Their models would now be deployed inside classified US military and government systems. OpenAI insisted the agreement still contained safeguards for lawful use, and the rollout moved forward. Sam Altman announced it on X late on Friday night. The public reaction was immediate. ChatGPT uninstalls jumped 295% in a single day. A boycott movement, Quit GPT, got 2.5 million participants. A few days later, Altman posted an internal memo publicly on X. He called his own deal opportunistic and sloppy, and he said he shouldn't have rushed. He amended the contract, adding explicit restrictions on domestic surveillance, and moved on. What happened to Anthropic wasn't an accident. It was a demonstration of what the system does to those who resist it. In January 2025, President Trump stood at the White House and announced the Stargate project, up to $500 billion, 20 data centers across the US. At the same time, China was moving. In 2024, Chinese researchers filed 35,000 AI patent applications, 13 times the combined total of the US, UK, Canada, Japan, and South Korea. China installed nearly 300,000 industrial robots in a single year, more than the rest of the world combined. In January 2025, a Chinese startup called DeepSeek released an AI model that seemed to match American capabilities at a fraction of the cost, causing Nvidia to lose $600 billion in market value in a single day. At some point, the world gets caught in a race. But machines can make mistakes, just like humans. And when the machine makes the mistake, who is responsible? The soldier who confirmed the target? The engineer who built the system? The CEO who signed the deal? The president who made the announcement? International law has no clear answer. It was designed for a world where humans pulled the trigger. Oppenheimer spent the rest of his life watching his creation escape him, because once a technology becomes strategically important, it stops belonging to the people who created it, and responsibility becomes harder to find. Maybe this was inevitable. Maybe every generation tells itself the same thing. We build, we race, and only afterward do we ask what we've become.